All right, how is everybody? I wanted to introduce our special guest today, all right? This is Jeremy Cowart from Nashville, Tennessee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Nashville's the place to be now from what I hear. He's married. He's got 4 children. What are their ages?
11 through 17. Yeah.
11 through 7. How many of you have been through the teenage years with children?
Yeah.
So pray for him, all right?
Yes.
Now, we're so excited to have Jeremy here. Jeremy is a humanitarian, and since he's been around the world, he's going to share some of the impact the gifts that God has given him has made. But he also, on the completely other side, has been in the celebrity world as far as portraits and those kind of things, from the former president, Barack Obama, to Taylor Swift. I think everybody loves Taylor Swift, of course. And the Kardashians. I'm not sure everybody loves the Kardashians. But anyways, he's been a lot of places. He's done a lot of things. And God's used him in a tremendous way. And we got the opportunity to hear you speak, I don't know, a few months ago. And it was, to me, it was an encouragement and a challenge, because it's so important to be reminded that we're all gifted by God to do something of significance, to make an impact with the gifts and the talents that we've been given in. And so to see what God's done in your life, but then also be challenged by it, to do the same thing in our own lives. I feel very blessed and honored to have you today.
Thank
and
you.
for them to get to experience what we experienced years ago. And then also, and just lastly, I to watch you to continue to make that difference and have that impact is inspiring. So
Sweet.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here, and we
Means
look
a lot.
forward to you
All
sharing
right,
with
all
us.
right.
All right?
Thank you. Good morning. So good to be with y'all. So I'm typically pretty chill. I don't wear bold clothes. I don't have nearly the style that he does. And so I show up yesterday to my hotel, and I'm like always just in basic clothes. So I just need a couch to crash on. Like, I'm so laid back. And I get to my hotel room, and they have a little gift bag for me, and they had this jacket custom made for me. Isn't that crazy? So, and there's even the artist's name. I don't know if it's Robbie Artie. Is that right? So anyway, shout out to the artist and the team for spoiling me. And look at this. There it is. So, so cool. I love the intentionality. Anyway, so I'm from Nashville. I'm an artist. I'm not a pastor or speaker. I just have been doing a lot of crazy pursuing ideas in my life. And so several years ago, a buddy of mine asked me, he said, hey, can you come speak at my conference? And I was like, I don't do that. I'm not a speaker. But he kept asking, and eventually I said, I've got an idea to draw or create a visual talk. And so he let me, and I made this hog, and then it just kind of took a life of its own, and that's what I'm going to share with y'all today. So here we go. Thank you. So kind. There we go. So my name is Jeremy, and this is my story. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I grew up in a suburb called Hendersonville. Hendersonville was originally known for being the hometown of Mr. Johnny Cash, and now it's known for being the hometown of Miss Taylor Swift. I love you, Taylor. So growing up, I was never smart. I couldn't pay attention for more than 3 minutes. I was quiet, shy, and really just average. I always remember telling my mom and dad that I can't do this. And so that's when my dad started reprogramming my brain. He reprogrammed it with one simple sentence: I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Pretty great. And so he said this for years, over and over and over again. And then in 7th grade, I discovered I could draw, so I started taking art more seriously. Something came alive in me whenever I would create. And so I was falling in love with all the failing at all the mandatory academics, but I came to life in the optional arts. I was even tested with some fancy aptitude test my senior year, and here were the official results. Inductive reasoning, I got a 15 out of 100. It's okay, you can laugh. Analytical reasoning, 5 out of 100. Structural visualization, 15. Killing it, right? Observation, 15. My English vocabulary was a 5 out of 100. Pretty sure it's still a 5 to this day. So perfect. It's now been confirmed that I'm a complete and total moron. Thank you, aptitude test. But when it came time for college, all I knew was art. I could make pretty things, and that was about it. So I wanted to be a painter for the rest of my life. And so my parents made a call that was very wise, and in hindsight, way ahead of their time. My mom said, it's going to be tough to make a living as a painter. You should look into computers and graphic design instead. Whoa, here comes those two words again. I can't. Computers are for smart people. Computers are for people who can focus. I'm not smart, so therefore I can't. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, they reminded me. So off to the races, I went ahead and reluctantly jumped in. And guess what happened? I fell in love. Turns out the Photoshop is the coolest tool on the planet. And it's not just for smart people, it's for anybody, and it was definitely for me. And so I studied graphic design in college. I got my first job at a high-end ad agency. And after a year, my boss fired me. Not only did he fire me, but he suggested that I find another career altogether. But see, he was too late. I had already started believing that I could do anything I wanted to do. So thankfully, I ignored him, and I worked for a couple more agencies. And then I finally realized that that world was boring for me because I was designing websites for air conditioning companies, and it's literally impossible to make an AC unit look sexy. So at the time, I had a few friends doing music. I knew how to design album covers and websites, so why not work for my friends instead? After having the idea, I quit my job the next day. I didn't think, I just jumped. I called the company Pixel Grazer, and it blew up. Album covers, websites, merch, we did it all. One day a friend said, hey, you should buy this thing called a digital camera. Here we go again, back to square one. I can't. There's no way. Photography is for smart people. I took one photography class in college, and I made a D. My professor seemed to hate me, so I swore off photography for life. Literally told all my friends I will never become a photographer. So what did I do? I went to the bookstore, bought a book called Digital Photography for Dummies. True story, I really did. I learned about these scary things called f-stop, shutter speeds, ISO, white balance, and more. And to my utter surprise, I actually understood it all. So maybe I wasn't an idiot after all. So I went and bought a 3-megapixel camera and was ready to take over the world. Next thing you know, I was shooting those musician friends of mine for fun, and I wasn't awful. And so I finally told all my clients, hey, I'm taking pictures out too. You know what happened is I started landing a lot of gigs. One of those was for a record label, and I ended up beating a well-known Hollywood agent and her roster of celebrity photographers. So she calls me and she says, hey, I would love to represent you. Your work is amazing. You know how to light big sets, right? Yeah, totally. But I had never lit a big set before. So we signed a deal, and within weeks I was shooting for TV networks like E! and Fox. Then I got to photograph this guy named Sting. It was all pretty crazy. The immediate success was shocking. I went from amateur photographer to celebrity photographer in just a few months. Since then, I've now photographed the Kardashians, Ryan Seacrest, Taylor Swift, Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, many, many more over the years. I've now published 4 photography books. I was Britney Spears tour photographer. Long story, don't recommend it. Now photographed presidents. I documented the Pope's journey to the U.S. several years ago. My photos have now been published in Sports Illustrated, ESPN, Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, all the big magazines that I could have dreamed of. And so I've used social media over the years to get the word out and to build a platform. In July of 2015, Adweek named me one of 10 visual artists who are changing the way we see the world. In 2014, Huffington Post named me the most influential photographer on the internet. So I did it, I thought. I made it. But wait, I realized, so what? Like, who cares? Was being a photography rock star really my goal? And so I realized that I shouldn't aim for greatness and stop there, because greatness should serve a greater purpose. So what was my greater purpose? That led me to the idea of giving photos away to people in need. And so I gathered together a few photography friends, and we spent the day at a gym doing just that, giving photos away to people in need. And I put a simple video on the internet, and people said, hey, I want to be a part of this if you do it again. And so that's when I had the thought, what if this was a global event where photographers did this all over the world? No way, I can't. Global? That idea that my parents instilled in me not only helped me overcome my challenges and insecurities, but it blew up my limitations and opened up the world to me. So why not start a global movement? So 9 months later, I put the idea out there, and word spread fast. So what happened that December of 2008? 3,400 photographers and 5,000 volunteers responded, and we gave away 41,000 portraits, 543 locations, and 42 countries around the world. Thank y'all. And since then, the numbers are now approaching 100,000 people that have given away nearly 500,000 portraits in over 70 countries in every American state. But it's not the numbers that count, it's the stories, dignity, beauty, and value, a sense of self-worth. These are all the things being given away the material possessions can't deliver. We've seen grown women have their hair and makeup done for the very first time. We've seen men have their first pictures taken outside of their jail mugshots. We've restored photos after natural disasters. We've had kids see their faces for the first time in third world countries. We've had people use their headshots to get jobs after the event. We've had photographers say, this is the greatest thing I've ever done with my camera. We've had photography competitors become community after serving together. A hell portrait was a crazy simple idea that has now reached around the world. And it made me realize that a simple idea and a camera could go a long way. So how else could I help? So when the earthquake struck Haiti in 2010, I think, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe my eyes. More importantly, I couldn't believe what the media was saying about it all. They just kept saying how many buildings had fallen, how many people had died. It was all statistics. But what about the people, I wondered? What would they have to say to the world? So as I sat on my couch watching TV, I wondered, what if these people could tweet? What would they tell the world? So most of them couldn't tweet at the time, so I wondered, what if I gave them a microphone in the form of a photograph? So we went around asking people what they had to tell the world. The results were staggering, heart-wrenching, beautiful, and inspiring. This man said, my chopped leg is not the problem. The lack of government is the problem. This woman simply said, oh, the things I've seen. This man said, the earth may shake, but Haiti remains in my heart. This woman said, God, please show me the path of hope. But somebody had hope. We heard there was a wedding going on, and the thought was crazy. There were still aftershocks happening. There were still dead bodies everywhere. And who would get married amongst all this devastation? So we found the wedding, and we asked them what they had to say to the world, and the response blew us away. They wrote on a paper plate, love conquers all. By the way, that's my first tattoo right there. That's their handwriting. So after that, I decided to go to Uganda and work with kids, former child soldiers who had been abducted by a guy named Joseph Kony in the LRA. It's a form of art therapy. We worked together to tell their stories. We interviewed them, I took portraits of them, and we had them draw the pains of their past and the dreams of their future. I even taught them how to draw these stories in Photoshop, and the stories weighed heavy on our team. One girl was forced to participate in the murder of her own mother. She was 7 years old at the time. Then there was Dilish. Dilish had finished her art. She said, wait, I need to draw more. She said, they killed my mother in front of me and my sister. So my sister started crying, and they picked her up by the feet, and they slammed her head first into a tree to also kill her. Dilish, this is her art that she drew on my computer, and I screen recorded it, but you'll see the soldiers and the blood and her sister and the guns. Other stories, believe it or not, were even more graphic, more horrific, and evil to recount here today. But they all had glimpses of hope and redemption woven throughout, and I wanted to help share that. So I took their handkerchiefs, their portraits, and their stories, and I combined them all together with mixed media to make these images here. And when I was finished, we'd make prints. I would print them in my studio and draw over them and paint over them as a continued form of collaboration with these children. And then we would sell the prints to raise more money for their continued art therapy. And this organization continues that work to this day. They're amazing. Thank you. So November of 2015, a fire ripped through Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and the surrounding areas. It killed 14 and injured hundreds, and destroyed tons of homes and businesses. And I was sitting in church one morning, my pastor was speaking, and God gave me this just vision for the most random thing, drones and a mattress. And I had this vision of like a drone flying high above a white mattress in the stark rubble, and just what a beautiful image that would be. Out of nowhere, God just planted that in my heart. And so I assembled a crew, and next thing I know, we're in Gatlinburg with drones and a mattress. And I really didn't know what was going to happen with the project, what we were going to do. I didn't have a plan, but I just kind of followed that whisper of an idea. And so the first guy we met in Gatlinburg was a guy named Kirk. He's a local famous musician. Built his own house with his own hands over many, many years, and lost everything in the fires, no insurance. And anyway, so there's me learning to photograph with the drone. Took a quick picture of Kirk. And then when I took the first picture of Kirk with the drone, I just cried, because it was the vision, the exact vision that God had given me in church. And here's that image there. I just couldn't believe it. And so I knew we had a special project on our hands. And so we kept going and kept photographing more people in Gatlinburg. This lady was a state trooper and had been driving around helping people. Lost her home, and she came back to get what was remaining of her possessions, and they had already bulldozed her property. So she just said, I feel naked. I have nothing. And there was this family from Germany. Me and one of the guys really connected because he was a photographer and lifelong work shooting around the world, and lost all of his work in the wildfires. There he is with his printer and hard drives. And he said, there's never a better time to start over. And I was just so inspired by that, by his attitude. But there he is with his sister and father. This is the mayor of Gatlinburg, Mayor Mike Warner. I'll never forget when I called him. He was just weeping, and I was a total stranger because his city had lost so much, and I realized that he had also lost his own home as well. So, and then when I got to the home, I realized his daughters were seeing all the devastation of their former home as well. So this is his daughters there over my shoulder. But it was sweet being with them and getting to photograph there. This is them in their former living room. And remember, this is just one of those little whispers of ideas that I actually had in church, just following that faint whisper from God. There's Mayor Mike and his wife in their former bedroom. And I had the idea to use the sun to cast these shadows on the family that day. This guy lost his home and his business. They were together, decades-old pottery business. This firefighter had been saving lives all night, only to come home and realize he had lost everything as well. So here he is with his wife and daughters. A lot of people had lost all their Christmas presents. Christmas was only a few days away, so we were able to rally together a lot of help and get a lot of gifts for the kids in the community. And so after it was all done, I hugged my crew goodbye. I went to bed that night. I was like, man, I don't know what to do with this, but I feel like it belongs on somewhere like Time Magazine. And what if we raised money for all these people and built crowdfunding pages to give them money to rebuild? So I kid you not, the next morning I had one email from Time Magazine saying, Jeremy, we'd love to publish this project. It was insane. And so they built a website, and we raised a lot of money to help these people rebuild after the wildfires. You never know where God is taking those crazy ideas. So speaking of kids, I have 4 children. My wife did not want her picture displayed. But there's my daughter Isley and my daughter Ebby, Adler, and Eli. Those are my 4 kids. 2 of my own, 2 adopted from Haiti. And you know what I tell them? Oh, thank you. Every day, they're all reminding us what it means to live out the idea that it took me so long to embrace. Nothing is more important than family. I not only have 2 supportive parents, but 2 older brothers as well. And years ago, we took our daughters to a daughter dance. And my brother Mike, also a photographer, took just one photo of me and my daughter that night in the fake snow. And then in return, I took just one photo of he and his daughter Reese as well. And so fast forward a few weeks, I was speaking at a conference in Vegas when I got a 911 text from Dad. He said, he called me and said, Mike just suddenly passed away from a heart attack. He was 43 years old. We had no idea anything was wrong. That photo was the last time I saw him, last time I took his picture, obviously. And I will forever treasure that. So in the weeks and months that followed his passing, I began asking, what if I died tomorrow? What about my kids? What if I could teach them everything I've learned in life, just in case? See, we live in an age where it's really easy to document our thoughts and our feelings, but why don't we document our wisdom? Could you imagine if your great-grandparents and grandparents would have had the technology we have now, and they could have done this? If they could have taught you everything they learned in life. With the beginning of our digital family trees, 5 generations, our family will be Googling us, reading our Facebook, our tweets, our Instagram, our TikToks. It's terrifying. So what are we saying and teaching them today? That line of thinking inspired me to launch something where I just found videos and taught everything I knew had to do in life, from photography to lighting to business to fear of failure to marriage, work balance, all of it. I would just film stuff for the public, but mainly really for my children. And so think about that. Little shy, 5th percentile me from Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I'm now teaching the world about the very things in life that I thought I couldn't do. So now I know about my past, so what about my future? Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the truth is, there's another idea that I had in the summer of 2012 that I've been terrified of. It's my Mount Everest, it's my Goliath, bigger than everything I've just shared. The dream is I want to build a hotel called the Purpose Hotel. And not just a hotel, but a global hotel chain where everything inside the building is connected to causes and nonprofits and helps people in need. And so there'd be a charity water well in the lobby that teaches people about the importance of clean water. Every room in the building would sponsor a child and tell their story. The art would come from my fellow humanitarian artists. The internet feed would fight human trafficking. The blankets would be used home by survivors of human trafficking. It'd be inspiring social films, curated books. Soaps and shampoos would come by women survivors of addiction. The receipt would show your impact on the community around you. And your account would keep a running tally on your cumulative impact. And so here's a little bit of a preview of some of our renderings we've been working. Oh, the tagline is "Change the world in your sleep." That came to me on the very first day. So here's a little preview of our renderings. Doesn't Fort Lauderdale need one of these? I'm not just saying. And so that's a bit of the vision that I've been working a long time on. But it turns out, like I said, it's my Everest, it's my Goliath. And the pandemic and bad economies are hard. And so this has been a slow journey. The pandemic really just kind of canceled everything. And so we've been in a bit of a rebuilding phase. But do you see what I just did over the last couple of minutes? I took the first step by speaking my dreams and fears to you. There's nothing that exists yet, no buildings yet, except for the idea itself. But this is how ideas become reality. You have to take that first step. You have to speak your dreams into existence. Today, text, call, email somebody you know. Share that idea that you've been too afraid to share. If I can do all this, just imagine what y'all can do. Sorry, I forgot what I said. What voices have kept you from reaching your potential? What voices have closed your sense of wonder? If you're alive, if you're breathing, we need you. We need your vision. Remember, the word impossible spells I'm possible. As you guys now know, you can do anything through Christ who strengthens you. That's all I've got. Thank you. Thank you so much. Y'all are sweet. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Oh,
Great job. You may be seated, all right? I want to take what Jeremy said and challenge us a little bit. And in order to do that, I'm going to ask you to do something. If you would, look at your hands, all right? Just look at your hands. And the question is what do you see? Because we all have different, right? If you look down, some of us probably see calluses if you turn them over. Some of us may see soft hands. Some of us may see large hands, small hands. Some of us have fat fingers. Some of us have an engagement ring. Some of us have a tan line where we used to have an engagement ring. Right? Our hands all look different. They're all capable of different things. Some of us have arthritis, and our hands can't do what they once could do. The question for me is, what are you going to do with those hands? And how are you going to use them to make a difference? How does God want you to use your skills, your talents to change the world? You know, there's a story in the Bible, you've probably heard of him, Moses. And God had called Moses to do something great. Moses had tried it in the past and he had failed. So the last thing he wanted to do is try it again. I mean, he had been hiding, you might say, for 40 years. And God comes to him and he said, I want you to go to Pharaoh and I want you to lead my people. And Moses is like, well, God, what if they won't listen? And let me read to you God's response. It's found in Deuteronomy chapter 30. He says, you will return and obey the Lord. Or, excuse me, let me go up. It's actually, gotta love technology, right? Well, we're going to look up here. It's up here. Exodus chapter 4 says, but Moses protested again. What if they won't believe me or listen? What if they say, Lord, you can't, I can't do this? And so here's what God asked him. What is in your hand? It's a powerful question, isn't it? Moses was afraid of what he couldn't do. And God just simply said, well, what's in your hand? Here's what you can do. And that's my question to you. What's in your hand? What relationships are in your hands? What skills are in your hands? What experiences are in your hands? What joy, love, anger, passion, hope, fear, discouragement. Once again, let me encourage you to look at your hands. Go ahead, look at your hands and answer that question. What's in your hand? Maybe you've been so focused on what you can't do. Jeremy was sharing with me, I don't know, I think he said 5 or 6 years ago, he came down with an illness where he continually feels like he's on a boat on the ocean. So it makes it difficult for him to walk. And yet, he's dreaming and changing and impacting. What about your hands? Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're young. Maybe they have arthritis. But what are you going to do? What are you going to reach for? Paul talks about that. Let me read to you what Paul actually said. Again, I'm not going to read it to you on this because he says in Philippians chapter 3, he says, I'm single-minded, forgetting the things that are behind and reaching out for the things that are ahead. So I'm forgetting the failures, I'm forgetting the challenges, and I'm reaching out for that which is ahead. With this goal in mind, I strive towards the prize, upward call of God in Christ. What are you reaching for with your hands? The influence, possessions. I mean, what is it that you dream about, that you think about? What will you do with your hands? In Deuteronomy, it says this. It says, you will return and obey the Lord, keeping all of his commandments I'm giving you today, and the Lord will make the labor of your hands abundantly successful. In other words, God is giving your hands to do something of significance, and if you and I will allow him to use our hands, we'll accomplish what he's created us to do. We'll live out the destiny for which we were created. But we have to reach out. We have to trust him. The wisdom writer says in Ecclesiastes, whatever you find to do with your hands, do it with all your might. Because there's neither work nor planning nor knowledge nor wisdom in the grave that you will eventually go to. In other words, we're all going to die. There's an urgency to do something with our hands. We're only 13 weeks away from our Christmas launch. Just a few months away to 2023 being completely over. What have you done with your hands? Whose lives have you impacted with your hands? What have you reached for with your hands? Or have they just been in your pockets? Have you just talked or thought about what you're going to do, but you haven't done anything? I want to challenge us this weekend to commit to doing something with our hands. Our incredible volunteers are going to help us. They're going to come to these tables, and at these tables we have cameras that are there. And in a moment, we're going to worship, and as we worship, I want to invite you that if you're ready to make a commitment to do something with your hands, to come forward, and we're going to take a picture of your hands. We're going to place them upon that wall, but I want you to think about what it is you're committing to. See, for some of us, maybe we need to surrender to God. We need to make him the Lord, the master, the CEO. I mean, we may be religious, may even grown up in church or was even baptized, but we have never surrendered to him. He doesn't lead our finances. He doesn't lead our dating. He doesn't lead our marriage. And so maybe you just need to present your hands in a way of surrender. For others of us, we've never taken hold of serving. We've never engaged in the life of this family called Potential Church. And so you need to present your hands as if they're taking hold of the plow, right? Taking hold of ministry, taking hold of serving. Maybe you need to recommit to your spouse, and you need to present your hands together. Maybe there's something you need to surrender, like your kids. And so you need to put a picture of your children on the phone and then place them in your hands as a way of saying, God, I love my kids, but they're yours, they're not mine. Maybe it's finances. You've just been hanging on. The economy's bad. Something's went on in your job or your business, and so you're just hanging on too tightly. You're too anxious. You're too worried. You're too concerned with something that's important, but that God says He'll take care of. And so maybe you need to put your wallet or a picture of your job or whatever. I don't know what God's nudged your heart. But as Jeremy spoke, I'm sure God spoke to you. I'm sure He challenged you. And the temptation is for us to walk out of these doors the same way as we came in and say, you know, that was good. Maybe that was even inspiring. But to not go as far as to be transformed. And transformation happens as a result of a decision and a commitment to keep the decision that we've made. That's why I ask you to get out of your seat and to do something. Because I don't know about you, I've made a lot of decisions in my mind that didn't last till I got home. Right? It sounds good in the moment. You're hearing somebody talk about getting healthy. It sounds good to go on a diet. But when I get home, there are brownies on the counter, and it doesn't sound near as good. There's something about making a commitment. And so I'm going to pray for us, and we're going to worship. And while we worship, we've got stations in the balcony. We've got them down here on the floor. To think for a moment, what's God calling you to commit to? And how can you present your hands in such a way? They're going to be black and white, and then we're going to put them out there on that wall in the coming months as a reminder of a group of people who have committed to do something with their hands, to take them out of our pockets and to make a difference. So would you bow your head? And if you're watching online, there's a link there as well so that you can upload your hands. People can see them there online, but we'll also print them off and present them out in the hallway as well with everyone else. So everybody can participate. What is it you need to commit? What is it that you need to surrender? And how can you represent that with your hands? God, we often take our hands for granted until we get a sore finger, or even should something tragic happen. And we do the same with our lives. We kind of put our lives in our pocket, God, and we forget that every single one of us were created with a destiny, with a purpose. We're your masterpiece. We're your artwork. You knit us together to do something great in our mother's womb, every single one of us. But God, we often are afraid to pursue it, or because we failed in the past, we just put our hands in our pockets and put our head down. But today you've once again challenged us, just like you did Moses. What's in our hand? God, give us the courage to commit to making a difference. Our world needs it. We ask it for your glory, and we ask it in Jesus' name.